Maya Chun had always been invisible in the crowded hallways of Riverside High School. She moved like a shadow between classes, her worn backpack heavy with textbooks she actually read, unlike most of her classmates who treated education like an inconvenient interruption to their social lives. At 17, she had mastered the art of blending into backgrounds, of sitting in corners where teachers rarely called on quiet students, of eating lunch alone while scrolling through her phone to avoid the pitying looks from others. Her thick-rimmed glasses often slipped down her nose, a nervous habit she had developed from constantly pushing them back up when she felt anxious. Her long black hair was usually pulled back in a simple ponytail, practical rather than stylish. Maya's clothes were clean, but unremarkable, mostly hand-me-downs from her older sister who had moved away for college 2 years ago. She had learned early in life that standing out often meant becoming a target, so she chose the safety of anonymity. The bullying had started in middle school and followed her like a persistent shadow in a high school. It wasn't the dramatic, movie-style bullying with physical confrontations and locker slams. Instead, it was the subtle, everyday cruelty that slowly chipped away at a person's confidence. Whispered comments about her outdated clothes, snickers when she answered questions correctly in class, deliberate exclusion from group projects until teachers forced reluctant classmates to include her. The main orchestrators of her daily humiliation were Jake Morrison and his crew of wannabe tough guys. Jake was everything Maya wasn't: popular, confident, and seemingly untouchable in the social hierarchy of high school. He had the kind of easy charm that made teachers overlook his mediocre grades and parents trust him with their daughters. His followers, Brad, Kenny, and Sam, laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny and echoed his opinions even when they didn't understand them. Maya's home life provided little escape from the stress of school. Her mother, Linda, worked double shifts at the local diner to keep their small apartment running after Maya's father had abandoned them when she was 12. The abandonment had left deep scars on both mother and daughter, creating a household where survival took precedence over emotional connection. Linda loved her daughter fiercely, but showed it through packed lunches and clean laundry rather than long conversations about feelings or dreams. Their apartment was small but clean, located in a complex that had seen better days. The walls were thin enough that they could hear their neighbors' television shows and arguments. Maya's bedroom was barely large enough for a twin bed, a small desk, and a dresser that doubled as a nightstand. The walls were decorated with a few posters of her favorite books and movies, the only personal touches in an otherwise sparse room. Maya had discovered gaming almost by accident 2 years earlier, when a computer programming class introduced her to basic game design. While other students groaned about the technical aspects, Maya found herself fascinated by the logic and precision required. She started playing online games initially as a way to understand game mechanics, but she quickly discovered that she had natural talent and reflexes that surprised even herself. In the virtual world, Maya transformed from the invisible girl who ate lunch alone to a formidable player who could outmaneuver opponents with calculated precision. Her username, Silent Storm, became known in certain gaming circles for tactical brilliance and an almost supernatural ability to predict enemy movements. Gaming gave her a sense of control and competence that was completely absent from her real life. The irony wasn't lost on her that she excelled in simulated combat while being unable to defend herself against teenage bullies. In games, she could respawn after defeat, analyze her mistakes, and try again. In real life, each humiliation felt permanent, each cruel comment adding another layer to the armor of self-doubt she had built around herself. Maya's academic performance remained strong despite the social challenges. She maintained a solid B+ average, partly because studying provided an escape from her problems, and partly because she had internalized her mother's constant reminders about education being their ticket to a better life. Her teachers appreciated her quiet diligence, but none of them seemed to notice the isolation that surrounded her like an invisible barrier. The school's social ecosystem was rigidly structured, with clear hierarchies that everyone understood but no one openly discussed. At the top were the athletes and the conventionally attractive students who seemed to glide through high school on a cushion of popularity and privilege. Below them were various subgroups, each with their own internal rankings and unspoken rules. At the bottom, almost invisible to the rest of the social structure, were students like Maya who existed on the periphery of high school life. Maya had learned to navigate this system by making herself as unnoticeable as possible. She knew which hallways to avoid during lunch, which bathrooms were safe from gossip sessions and cruel comments, and which teachers might offer a sympathetic ear if things became unbearable. It was a survival strategy that had worked for years, but it came at the cost of genuine human connection. Her relationship with her mother was loving, but complicated by financial stress and emotional distance. Linda worked so many hours that she was often too exhausted for meaningful conversations. When she was home, she was usually catching up on household chores or collapsing in front of the television with a cup of coffee and expression of bone-deep tiredness. Maya understood that her mother was doing her best, but she still felt profoundly alone in dealing with the challenges of adolescence. The gaming community provided Maya with her only sense of belonging. Online, she could communicate with people who appreciated her skills without knowing anything about her social status or appearance. She had developed friendships with players from around the world, people who knew her only through her gaming prowess and strategic thinking. These virtual relationships felt more genuine than most of her real-world interactions. Maya's favorite games were tactical shooters that required quick reflexes, strategic planning, and precise aim. She spent hours practicing different scenarios, studying professional players' techniques, and developing her own unique playing style. Her approach was methodical and patient, characteristics that served her well in games but seemed to make her an easy target in real life. The contradiction between her gaming confidence and real-world anxiety created an internal tension that Maya struggled to resolve. She knew she was capable of quick thinking and decisive action in virtual environments, but somehow that knowledge never translated into the confidence she needed to stand up for herself at school. The disconnect was frustrating and added another layer of complexity to her already complicated relationship with self-esteem. As winter approached during her junior year, the bullying seemed to intensify. Jake and his friends had discovered that Maya reacted visibly to their comments, a small flinch or downward glance that encouraged them to continue their psychological torture. They had developed a sophisticated understanding of how to humiliate someone without crossing lines that might attract adult intervention. Maya found herself dreading school more than usual. The anticipation of daily humiliation was sometimes worse than the actual encounters. She would lie awake at night, rehearsing responses to potential insults, imagining scenarios where she finally found the courage to fight back. But when morning came and she faced the reality of Jake's confident sneer, her carefully planned responses dissolved into the familiar silence of defeat. The breaking point came on a cold Tuesday morning in November. Maya had arrived at school early to finish a chemistry lab report in the library, hoping to avoid the usual crowd of students who gathered near the main entrance. She had found a quiet corner table and was absorbed in her work when Jake and his friends discovered her sanctuary. "Look what we have here," Jake announced loudly enough to attract the attention of other early arrivals. "It's the invisible girl, actually visible for once." Maya kept her eyes focused on her notebook, hoping that ignoring them would make them lose interest and move on. This strategy had worked occasionally in the past, but today felt different. There was an energy in Jake's voice that suggested he was looking for more than just a quick laugh at her expense. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Jake continued, moving closer to her table. "Don't you think it's rude to ignore people when they're trying to be friendly?" Maya finally looked up, meeting Jake's eyes for a brief moment before quickly looking away. "I'm just trying to finish my homework," she said quietly, her voice barely audible in the large library space. "Homework," Brad repeated mockingly. "Always so serious about homework. Don't you ever do anything fun?" "Yeah," Kenny chimed in, like, "do you even have any hobbies? Or do you just study and go home to your sad little life?" The comment about her home life stung more than Maya expected. She felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment and anger, but she continued to stare at her notebook, hoping they would eventually get bored and leave her alone. "I bet you don't even know how to have fun," Sam added. "You probably spend all your time reading books and doing extra credit assignments." Maya's hands tightened around her pen, and she could feel her heart racing. The familiar feeling of helplessness was washing over her, the same sensation she had experienced countless times before. She wanted to disappear, to become truly invisible instead of just socially invisible. "You know what I think?" Jake said, leaning against her table in a way that invaded her personal space. I think you're probably one of those people who talks big online, but can't handle anything in real life. All bark, no bite. The comment hit closer to home than Jake could have known. Maya's online gaming persona was indeed confident and capable, everything she wished she could be in person. The irony of his accidental accuracy made her feel even more exposed and vulnerable. I bet you couldn't handle any kind of real challenge, Jake continued, encouraged by Maya's continued silence. You'd probably fall apart if anyone actually expected you to do something that mattered. Maya's jaw clenched involuntarily. She could feel something shifting inside her, a spark of anger that was different from the usual resignation. The comment about not being able to handle challenges touched on her deep-seated frustration with her own passivity. Like what? The words escaped before Maya could stop them. She immediately regretted speaking, knowing that engaging would only encourage them to continue their harassment. Jake's eyebrows raised in surprise. Oh, she speaks. Well. Like what? Good question. He paused theatrically, clearly enjoying having Maya's attention and the small audience that had gathered to watch the interaction. Maya could see other students pretending to study while obviously listening to every word of the conversation. Well, since you asked, Jake continued with a grin that made Maya's stomach churn, I was just thinking about how some people talk about being good at video games. You know, like they're tough online, but couldn't handle anything that actually required real skill. Maya felt her face growing even hotter. Somehow, Jake had unknowingly targeted the one area where she actually had confidence and expertise. The unfairness of his assumption made her anger burn brighter. I mean, Jake went on, anyone can click buttons on a computer. That doesn't take any real talent or courage. Real challenges require real guts. What kind of real challenge? Maya asked, her voice slightly stronger than before, but still barely above a whisper. Jake exchanged glances with his friends, clearly excited by this unexpected development. Maya had never engaged with their taunting before, and her willingness to respond seemed to energize them. Well, there's this new laser tag place that opened up downtown, Jake said slowly, as if he was thinking out loud. They have these realistic scenarios, military-style stuff. I bet someone who thinks they're good at shooting games wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real tactical situation. Maya's heart was pounding now, but not just from anxiety. She felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement at the possibility of proving herself in something she actually understood. Laser tag was similar enough to her gaming experience that she might actually have a chance to demonstrate competence for once. What are you saying? Maya asked, surprised by her own boldness in continuing the conversation. I'm saying, Jake replied, his voice taking on a more serious tone, that I bet you couldn't handle a real challenge like that. 5 headshots in a row without missing. Against actual opponents who are trying to beat you. Brad laughed. Dude, she'd probably hide in a corner the whole time. Yeah, Kenny added, or start crying when someone actually shot back at her. Maya felt something crystallize inside her, a moment of clarity that cut through years of accumulated self-doubt. These boys had no idea what she was capable of, and their assumptions were based on nothing more than her quiet demeanor and social awkwardness. In the realm of tactical thinking and precise aim, she could compete with anyone. What if I could? Maya said, her voice growing stronger with each word. The table fell silent. Jake stared at her with a mixture of surprise and amusement, clearly not expecting this response from someone who usually absorbed their insults without comment. What if you could what? Jake asked. What if I could get 5 headshots in a row without missing? Maya repeated, feeling as surprised by her own words as everyone else appeared to be. Jake's grin widened. Oh, this is interesting. Are you actually suggesting you could do something like that? Maya nodded slowly, not trusting herself to speak without her voice shaking. She couldn't believe she was considering this, but something about the challenge felt right. This was territory where her hours of practice and natural ability might actually matter. Okay then, Jake said, leaning back with obvious satisfaction. Let's make this interesting. If you can't do it, if you fail to get 5 headshots in a row during a real laser tag game, then you have to admit in front of everyone that you're all talk and no action. Maya's stomach clenched at the thought of public humiliation on that scale, but she forced herself to consider the alternative. And if I can do it? She asked. Jake paused, clearly not having considered this possibility seriously. If you can actually pull off 5 headshots in a row without missing in front of witnesses, then he looked at his friends for inspiration. Then, we'll leave you alone, Brad suggested, but Jake shook his head. No, bigger than that. If she can actually do something that impressive, then we'll admit she's not the pushover we thought she was. Publicly, Maya felt her pulse racing as she considered the proposal. The stakes felt impossibly high, but for the first time in years, she was being offered a chance to prove herself in an arena where she might actually have advantages. When Maya asked, her voice barely steady. This Saturday, Jake replied immediately. 2 o'clock at Tactical Zone downtown. Winner takes all. Maya nodded slowly, not sure if she was making the biggest mistake of her high school career or finally taking a stand for herself. Okay. The word hung in the air between them like a challenge that couldn't be taken back. Jake extended his hand with a theatrical flourish. Shake on it, he said. Maya looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment, knowing that taking it would change everything. There would be no backing down, no pretending the conversation had never happened. She would either prove herself capable of more than anyone expected, or she would face a humiliation that would follow her through the rest of high school. She reached out and shook Jake's hand, sealing an agreement that would test everything she thought she knew about herself. Maya spent the rest of Tuesday in a haze of disbelief and mounting anxiety. The handshake with Jake felt like it had happened to someone else, as if she had watched herself make the agreement from outside her own body. By lunchtime, word of the challenge had spread through the social networks of Riverside High with the speed that only teenage gossip could achieve. Students who had never spoken to Maya before were suddenly aware of her existence, though whether this newfound attention was positive or negative remained unclear. She sat alone at her usual table in the far corner of the cafeteria, picking at a sandwich her mother had packed while trying to process what she had committed herself to. The familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach had grown into a churning mass of fear and anticipation. Every few minutes, she would catch other students glancing in her direction, some with curiosity, others with the kind of excitement that came from anticipating someone else's potential humiliation. Maya tried to focus on the practical aspects of what lay ahead. She knew laser tag was similar to the tactical shooters she played online, but the physical component would be entirely different. In games, her success came from quick reflexes, strategic thinking, and an almost intuitive understanding of how opponents would move and react. The question that terrified her was whether any of those skills would translate to a physical environment where she would be moving, breathing hard, and dealing with the stress of real-time confrontation. After school, Maya walked home slowly, taking the long route through residential streets instead of the main road. The autumn air was crisp, and the changing leaves provided a colorful backdrop to her swirling thoughts. She needed time to think before facing her mother, who would undoubtedly notice that something significant had happened. Linda Chun had developed an almost supernatural ability to read her daughter's moods, a skill honed by years of single parenthood, and the constant worry that came with raising a quiet, sensitive child in an often harsh world. Their apartment felt smaller than usual when Maya finally arrived home. The familiar sounds of the building seemed amplified, from the television in the unit above them to the baby crying 3 doors down. Maya dropped her backpack by the door and found her mother in the kitchen, preparing dinner between bites of a quick snack that would have to sustain her until her evening shift at the diner began. "How was school today?" Linda asked without looking up from the vegetables she was chopping for stir-fry. Maya hesitated, knowing that her mother would immediately detect any attempt at deception. "Different," she said finally. Linda's hands paused in their chopping motion. "Different how?" Maya pulled out a kitchen chair and sat down heavily, suddenly feeling exhausted by the emotional weight of the day. "I did something that might have been really stupid." Her mother turned to face her fully, setting down the knife and giving Maya the kind of complete attention that had always made her feel both comforted and exposed. "Tell me." The story came out in fits and starts, with Maya struggling to explain the context without making herself sound even more pathetic than she already felt. She described the bullying situation carefully, not wanting to worry her mother unnecessarily, but Linda's expression grew increasingly concerned as the details emerged. "So you're going to compete against these boys in some kind of shooting game?" Linda asked when Maya finished explaining. "It's not real shooting," Maya said quickly. "It's laser tag, like a game but physical. The lasers just register hits on sensors." Linda sat down across from her daughter, her work uniform already wrinkled from a long day of taking orders and serving food to customers who rarely bothered to learn her name. "Maya, honey, Why would you agree to something like this? These boys have been treating you badly for years. Why give them another opportunity to hurt you? The question cut to the heart of Maya's own uncertainty. She had been asking herself the same thing since the moment she shook Jake's hand, and she still didn't have a clear answer. I don't know, Maya admitted. I think I'm tired of always backing down. I'm tired of being the person everyone expects to fail. Linda's expression softened with a mixture of pride and concern. But what if you do fail? What if it doesn't go the way you're hoping? Maya had been avoiding that possibility all day, but her mother's question forced her to confront it directly. Then, at least I'll have tried. At least I'll know I didn't just accept being treated like I don't matter. They sat in silence for several minutes, the familiar sounds of their building filling the space between them. Maya could hear her mother's thoughts almost as clearly as if she had spoken them. The internal debate between wanting to protect her daughter from potential humiliation and recognizing that Maya needed to find her own way of dealing with the challenges she faced. Have you ever played this laser tag before? Linda asked finally. No, but I played a lot of similar games on the computer. I'm actually pretty good at tactical shooters. Linda raised an eyebrow. Since when are you playing shooting games? Maya realized she had never shared much about her gaming life with her mother, partly because she hadn't thought Linda would understand, and partly because it felt like the one area of her life that belonged entirely to her. For about 2 years, Maya admitted, I started learning about game design in computer class, and then I got interested in actually playing. I've gotten pretty good at it. How good? Maya hesitated, suddenly feeling self-conscious about discussing her online achievements. Good enough that people I play with online ask for my advice on strategy. Good enough that I usually win more than I lose. Linda studied her daughter's face carefully, clearly trying to assess whether this was teenage bravado or genuine capability. Show me, she said finally. Maya looked confused. Show you what? Show me these games you're so good at. I want to understand what you think you can do on Saturday. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness at the prospect of sharing her gaming skills with her mother, but she led Linda to her small bedroom, where an aging laptop sat on her desk. The computer had been a gift from her sister 3 years ago when she upgraded to a newer model for college, and Maya had carefully maintained it as her gateway to the online world where she felt competent and valued. She logged into her favorite tactical shooter and selected a practice mode that would allow her to demonstrate her skills without the pressure of competing against other players. As her avatar appeared on screen in a detailed military environment, Maya felt some of her anxiety fade. This was familiar territory, a world where she understood the rules and had confidence in her abilities. Linda watched in fascination as Maya navigated through a complex scenario, methodically eliminating computer-controlled opponents with precision that seemed almost effortless. Her daughter's transformation was remarkable, from the hesitant teenager who struggled with social interactions to someone who moved through virtual combat situations with tactical brilliance and split-second decision-making. How long did it take you to get this good? Linda asked as Maya completed the scenario with a perfect score. I don't know exactly. Maybe 6 months of serious practice to get decent, another year to get really good. I spend about 2 hours a day playing when I'm not doing homework. Linda was quiet for a long time, processing this glimpse into a part of her daughter's life that had been completely hidden from her. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Maya shrugged, suddenly feeling embarrassed. I didn't think you'd be interested. And I thought you might think it was a waste of time. Is it a waste of time? Maya considered the question carefully. I don't think so. It's taught me about strategy and quick thinking, and it's the only place where I feel like I'm good at something. Linda reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. You're good at lots of things, honey. You just haven't had many opportunities to show it. They spent the next hour with Maya, explaining different aspects of tactical gaming, from the importance of map awareness to the psychological elements of predicting opponent behavior. Linda asked thoughtful questions and gradually began to understand that her daughter had developed genuine expertise in an area that, while unconventional, required real skill and intelligence. So you think these skills will help you in this laser tag challenge? Linda asked. I think so. I hope so. The basic principles should be similar. Map awareness, predicting where opponents will move, accuracy under pressure. But I won't know for sure until I actually try it. Linda was quiet for several minutes, clearly weighing different considerations. What do you need from me? The question surprised Maya. She had expected her mother to try to talk her out of the challenge, not offer support. I need you to believe that I can do this, Maya said softly. I do believe you can do this. But more importantly, I need you to believe you can do this. Win or lose, I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. That night, Maya lay awake long past her usual bedtime, alternating between excitement and terror about what lay ahead. She had never been in a situation where so much attention would be focused on her performance, where her capabilities would be tested so publicly. The thought of failing in front of Jake and his friends was almost paralyzing, but the possibility of succeeding felt equally overwhelming. She spent Wednesday and Thursday researching everything she could find about laser tag strategy and tactics. She watched YouTube videos of professional laser tag competitions, studied facility layouts online, and read forums where serious players discussed advanced techniques. The research helped calm some of her anxiety by giving her a sense of control and preparation. Maya also began a routine of physical preparation that she had never attempted before. She started doing jumping jacks and push-ups in her bedroom, trying to build up stamina for the physical demands of running around a laser tag arena. She practiced quick movements and direction changes, using her small bedroom as a training space for agility exercises she found online. By Friday, Maya's nervous energy had evolved into a focused determination that surprised her. The familiar anxiety was still there, but it was now mixed with something she had rarely experienced in social situations: genuine confidence in her own abilities. She knew she had spent hundreds of hours developing skills that were directly applicable to the challenge ahead, and she was beginning to believe that those skills might actually matter. The day of the challenge arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made everything seem more vivid and significant. Maya woke up early and spent extra time on her appearance, not out of vanity, but because she wanted to feel as prepared as possible. She chose dark jeans and a fitted black t-shirt that would allow for easy movement, and she pulled her hair back in a tight ponytail that wouldn't interfere with her vision or get caught on anything. Maya's mother had arranged to have Saturday afternoon off from work, a sacrifice that Maya knew had cost Linda both money and a favor from a co-worker who had covered her shift. Linda's presence meant everything to Maya, providing a foundation of support that helped counter the fear of facing Jake and his friends alone. They arrived at Tactical Zone 30 minutes before the appointed time, partly to allow Maya to familiarize herself with the environment, and partly because Maya's anxiety made waiting at home unbearable. The facility was larger and more sophisticated than Maya had expected, with multiple themed arenas and professional-grade equipment that immediately made the challenge feel more serious and legitimate. Maya checked in at the front desk and received a brief orientation about the rules and safety procedures. The staff member, a college-age guy named Marcus who seemed genuinely enthusiastic about laser tag as a sport, explained that they would be using the facility's most advanced arena, which was designed to simulate military combat scenarios. "You here for the challenge match?" Marcus asked as he fitted Maya with her laser tag vest and equipment. Maya nodded, surprised that the staff was aware of the situation. "Yeah, we heard about it from some of the other players who will be participating today. Pretty cool that you're willing to put yourself out there like that. Takes guts." Maya felt a flush of pride at the unexpected validation from someone who clearly knew what they were talking about when it came to laser tag. "Have you seen many people attempt 5 headshots in a row?" Marcus whistled low. "That's a serious challenge, especially under pressure. The gear is accurate, but it requires real precision and staying calm when people are shooting back at you. You must be pretty confident in your abilities." Maya tested the weight and feel of the laser tag gun, pleased to find that it was more substantial and realistic than she had expected. The vest was comfortable and didn't restrict her movement significantly. Most importantly, the sight alignment felt natural and intuitive. "I've practiced a lot on similar equipment in virtual environments," Maya told Marcus. "I'm hoping that transfers to real-world situations. Virtual training can definitely help, especially if you've been working on the same kinds of tactical scenarios we use here. But there's nothing like the real thing for testing whether you can perform under pressure." Jake and his friends arrived exactly at 2 o'clock, accompanied by what seemed like half the junior class of Riverside High School. Maya's heart sank as she realized how many people had come to watch her either succeed or fail spectacularly. The audience included students who had never paid attention to her before, some who seemed genuinely curious about the outcome, and others who were clearly hoping to witness a humiliating defeat. Jake looked confident and relaxed, bantering easily with his friends and the growing crowd of spectators. He was dressed in athletic clothes and moved with the kind of casual coordination that suggested he was comfortable with physical challenges. When he saw Maya, his grin widened with anticipation. "Ready for this?" he asked, his tone suggesting that he expected the answer to be no. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak without her voice shaking. She could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on her, measuring and judging, waiting to see if the quiet girl who never stood up for herself could actually back up her unprecedented moment of boldness. Marcus explained the rules to both participants and the watching crowd. They would play in the military simulation arena for 20 minutes. Maya needed to achieve 5 headshots in a row without missing to win the challenge. Jake and 2 of his friends would be her opponents, and they were allowed to use any tactics they wanted to prevent her from succeeding. If Maya missed a shot or went more than 3 minutes without a successful headshot, she would lose the challenge. "Any questions?" Marcus asked. Maya shook her head, feeling as ready as she would ever be. "All right then," Marcus announced to the crowd. "Let's see what happens when theory meets practice." The military simulation arena was a maze of concrete barriers, metal structures, and shadowy corridors designed to replicate urban combat environments. Dim lighting created pockets of visibility, separated by areas of deep shadow, and the sound system played ambient noise that suggested a war zone complete with distant explosions and radio chatter. Maya stood at the entrance, feeling the weight of the laser tag equipment and trying to calm her racing heart. Marcus led all participants through the arena for a quick walkthrough, pointing out boundaries, explaining the sensor systems, and reviewing safety protocols. Maya paid careful attention to the layout, automatically cataloging potential cover positions, sight lines, and movement corridors the way she had learned to analyze virtual maps. The arena was roughly rectangular with a central open area surrounded by corridors and chambers that provided multiple routes between different sections. "The sensors are highly accurate," Marcus explained as they paused near a particularly complex section with multiple levels and blind corners. "Headshots register differently from body shots, and the system tracks every hit with precise timing. Your equipment will provide audio and visual feedback when you score hits or get hit yourself." Maya noticed that the laser tag guns felt heavier than she had expected, but the weight was distributed well and the sights aligned naturally when she brought the weapon to her shoulder. She practiced a few quick aim acquisitions while Marcus was explaining the rules, pleased to find that her muscle memory from years of gaming seemed to translate well to the physical equipment. Jake and his friends were clearly treating the entire situation as an entertaining diversion rather than a serious competition. They joked loudly during the orientation, made exaggerated military poses for the benefit of their audience, and seemed completely confident that Maya would collapse under pressure within the first few minutes of the challenge. "Remember," Jake said loudly enough for the spectators to hear, 5 headshots in a row without missing. That means 5 different targets, or 5 hits on the same target, but if you miss even once, you lose." Maya nodded, her throat too tight to trust her voice. The crowd of students pressed against the viewing windows that surrounded the arena, their faces a mixture of curiosity, excitement, and anticipation. She caught sight of her mother, standing near the back of the group, offering a small smile and a thumbs up that provided a momentary boost of confidence. "Players, take your starting positions," Marcus announced over the arena sound system. Maya had chosen a corner position that offered good visibility of multiple approach routes while providing solid cover from at least 2 directions. Jake and his friends spread out across the arena, clearly planning to use their numerical advantage to pressure Maya from multiple angles simultaneously. The countdown began with electronic beeps that echoed throughout the arena. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, trying to center herself and recall everything she had learned about tactical awareness and precision shooting. When she opened them again, the familiar calm focus that she associated with her best gaming performances had settled over her mind. 3, 2, 1, begin. The arena plunged into the controlled chaos of simulated combat. Maya immediately moved from her starting position, knowing that staying in one place would make her an easy target for coordinated attacks. She could hear Jake and his friends calling out to each other, their voices echoing off the concrete walls as they attempted to coordinate their movements. Maya's first priority was gathering intelligence about her opponent's positions and movement patterns. She moved quietly through the shadows, using cover effectively and pausing regularly to listen for footsteps and voices. Her gaming experience had taught her that patience and observation usually trumped aggressive action, especially when facing multiple opponents. The arena's ambient noise provided excellent cover for movement, but it also made it harder to track opponents by sound alone. Maya adapted quickly, relying more heavily on visual cues and her developing understanding of the arena's layout to predict where threats might appear. She caught her first glimpse of movement about 3 minutes into the match, spotting Brad as he moved carelessly between cover positions in the central area. Maya took her time lining up the shot, controlling her breathing the way she had practiced countless times in virtual environments. The laser tag gun felt steady in her hands as she acquired her target and squeezed the trigger. The headshot registered with a satisfying electronic tone, and Brad's equipment immediately signaled that he had been eliminated from that particular engagement. Maya felt a surge of satisfaction and relief that her first shot had been accurate, but she knew that the real challenge was just beginning. "Holy shit, she actually hit him!" she heard someone from the crowd exclaim, and the volume of commentary from the spectators increased noticeably. Jake's voice carried clearly across the arena. "Lucky shot. Let's see if she can do it again." Maya was already moving to a new position, knowing that her muzzle flash would have revealed her location to any opponents who had been watching. The key to achieving 5 consecutive headshots would be maintaining mobility while finding opportunities for clean shots at targets who were actively trying to avoid being hit. Kenny appeared around a corner approximately 40 feet away, moving with the kind of overconfident haste that Maya had learned to exploit in online games. She tracked his movement for several seconds, predicting his path and timing her shot for the moment when he would be most exposed. The second headshot was even cleaner than the first, catching Kenny completely by surprise as he focused on searching a different area where he thought Maya might be hiding. The crowd's reaction was louder this time, with genuine surprise mixing with excitement. Maya could hear individual voices expressing disbelief that the quiet girl they had dismissed was systematically eliminating her opponents with what appeared to be professional-level precision. "Two down," Maya whispered to herself, feeling her confidence growing as her virtual training proved its real-world applicability. Jake was the most dangerous opponent remaining, both because of his natural athleticism and because he was clearly taking the challenge more seriously as Maya demonstrated her capabilities. Sam, the third member of their group, was somewhere in the arena, but seemed to be staying close to Jake for mutual support. Maya spent several minutes maneuvering through the arena without encountering either remaining opponent. She could hear them moving and communicating, but they had become much more cautious about exposing themselves to potential shots. The psychological dynamic had shifted significantly, with Maya now being the hunter rather than the hunted. The third shot opportunity came when Maya spotted Sam's reflection in one of the arena's mirrored surfaces. He was positioned behind cover that protected him from direct assault, but left him visible from an angle he apparently hadn't considered. Maya took extra time with this shot, knowing that missing would reset her progress to 0 and likely destroy her confidence. The headshot was perfect, catching Sam completely off guard as he focused on watching approaches that Maya wasn't using. His elimination equipment activated with a distinctive sound that meant Maya was now 3/5 of the way to completing her seemingly impossible challenge. The spectator area erupted with genuine excitement as people began to realize they were witnessing something remarkable. Maya could hear her name being called from the crowd, voices she didn't recognize offering encouragement and expressing amazement at her performance. Jake's strategy changed dramatically after Sam's elimination. Instead of trying to coordinate with partners, he began moving aggressively through the arena, clearly hoping to pressure Maya into making a mistake or at least prevent her from finding good shooting opportunities. Maya adapted by becoming even more patient and methodical. She tracked Jake's movements through sound and occasional glimpses, building a mental map of his patrol patterns and identifying potential ambush locations. Her gaming experience had taught her that aggressive opponents often created their own vulnerabilities by prioritizing speed over caution. The fourth shot presented itself when Jake made the mistake of moving through a corridor that offered Maya a clear sight line from an elevated position she had claimed while he was searching a different section of the arena. She had been waiting motionless for almost 5 minutes, her laser tag gun trained on the corridor, when Jake appeared exactly where she had predicted he would. The shot was the most difficult yet, requiring her to lead a moving target at significant range while compensating for the elevation difference. Maya's hundreds of hours practicing long-range shots in virtual environments paid off as her laser found its mark with precision that impressed even her. Jake's elimination registered with the same electronic confirmation as the previous hits, but his reaction was dramatically different. Instead of the good-natured acknowledgement his friends had shown, Jake's response carried genuine frustration and disbelief. What the hell? How is she doing this? Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the reality of her situation. She needed one more headshot to complete the challenge, but she had eliminated all of her designated opponents. According to the rules Marcus had explained, she would need to reset the engagement and attempt another headshot on one of the previously eliminated players. Attention players, Marcus announced over the sound system. Maya has achieved 4 consecutive headshots and needs one more to complete the challenge. All eliminated players are being reactivated for the final engagement. Maya felt her pulse spike as she realized the stakes had just increased dramatically. Not only did she need to achieve one more precision shot, but she would now be facing 3 opponents who were fully aware of her capabilities and will be doing everything possible to prevent her success. Jake's voice carried clearly across the arena as he coordinated with his friends. Okay, new plan. We rush her from 3 directions simultaneously. She can't hit all of us at the same time. Maya knew that her previous strategy of patience and careful positioning would be insufficient against a coordinated assault. She needed to be more aggressive while still maintaining the precision required for a successful headshot. The contradiction between these requirements created a tactical puzzle that required all of her gaming experience to solve. She positioned herself in a central location that offered multiple escape routes while providing reasonable sight lines to areas where her opponents would likely approach. The key would be identifying the first opponent to expose themselves and taking the shot quickly enough to avoid being overwhelmed by the others. The final assault began with Jake and his friends moving simultaneously from different directions, clearly hoping to overwhelm Maya's ability to track multiple threats. Maya forced herself to remain calm, scanning rapidly between the approach routes and waiting for someone to make the mistake of exposing themselves for a clean shot. Brad appeared first, moving more cautiously than before, but still providing Maya with a brief window of opportunity. She acquired the target quickly, but something made her hesitate just as she was about to pull the trigger. The shot felt rushed, and her gaming instincts warned her that the timing wasn't quite right. Maya held her fire and immediately shifted position, trusting her tactical sense over the pressure to take any available shot. The decision proved correct when Kenny appeared in her previous sight line less than 2 seconds later, moving to exactly where she would have been if she had taken the hasty shot at Brad. The correct opportunity presented itself when Jake, apparently frustrated by Maya's continued evasion, moved carelessly around a corner in an attempt to close distance quickly. Maya had repositioned to cover that exact approach route, and when Jake appeared, she was ready with a sight picture that was perfect in every detail. The 5th headshot was the cleanest of the entire challenge, catching Jake in full stride with precision that left no doubt about Maya's shooting ability. The electronic confirmation of the hit was followed immediately by arena-wide lighting that signaled the end of the challenge and Maya's successful completion of what everyone had considered an impossible task. The silence that followed was broken by the eruption of cheers from the spectator area as the full magnitude of Maya's achievement sank in. She had not only completed the 5 consecutive headshots, but she had done so with a level of tactical sophistication and shooting precision that impressed even the laser tag facility staff. Maya stood in the arena, her laser tag equipment still humming softly, hardly believing that she had actually succeeded. The quiet girl who had been invisible for most of her high school career had just demonstrated capabilities that none of her classmates had suspected she possessed. Marcus's voice came over the sound system with genuine enthusiasm. Ladies and gentlemen, Maya-chan has successfully completed the 5 consecutive headshot challenge with what I can honestly say is some of the most impressive tactical shooting I've seen in this facility. The crowd's response grew even louder, with individual voices calling out congratulations and expressions of amazement. Maya could see her mother's face in the crowd, beaming with pride and perhaps a little surprise at the extent of her daughter's hidden talents. Jake emerged from the arena looking stunned and somewhat humbled. The easy confidence he had displayed before the challenge had been replaced by the recognition that he had seriously underestimated someone he had dismissed as weak and incapable. But Maya knew that the Real challenge was just beginning. She had proven herself capable of far more than anyone had expected, but she still had to return to the social dynamics of high school, where success in laser tag might not translate to acceptance or respect. The test of whether this moment would change anything significant about her life was still ahead of her. Maya emerged from the laser tag arena to find herself surrounded by classmates who had never spoken to her before. The transformation from invisible outcast to center of attention was so sudden and overwhelming that she felt momentarily disoriented, as if she had stepped into an alternate reality where the social rules she had learned to navigate no longer applied. "That was incredible," exclaimed Sarah Martinez, a popular girl from Maya's chemistry class who had never acknowledged her existence before today. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Maya found herself struggling to respond to questions that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. The same students who had watched her eat lunch alone for 3 years were now treating her like a celebrity, eagerly seeking details about her gaming background and tactical training. The attention felt surreal, like experiencing fame for skills she had never expected anyone to care about. Jake stood nearby, still wearing his laser tag equipment and looking genuinely shaken by what had just occurred. The easy arrogance that had defined his personality seemed to have evaporated, replaced by something that might have been respect or at least acknowledgement that his assumptions about Maya had been completely wrong. "I owe you an apology," Jake said when the crowd around Maya temporarily thinned. His voice carried a sincerity that surprised her almost as much as her own success had. "I've been treating you like crap for years based on nothing but stupid assumptions. What you just did in there was legitimately impressive." Maya studied Jake's face, looking for signs of sarcasm or manipulation, but his expression seemed genuinely contrite. The apology she had fantasized about for years was finally happening, but it felt more complicated than she had imagined it would. Accepting Jake's acknowledgement felt like validation, but it also raised questions about why her worth had to be proven through a public demonstration of skill rather than basic human decency. "Thank you," Maya said simply, not sure what else was appropriate in a situation she had never prepared for. "I mean it," Jake continued. "You're clearly capable of way more than any of us gave you credit for. That was some serious tactical thinking in there, not just good reflexes." Brad and Kenny approached with similar expressions of surprise and grudging respect. The group dynamic that had defined Maya's high school experience was shifting in real time, with power structures being rewritten based on a 20-minute laser tag match that had revealed capabilities none of them had suspected. "So you've been playing these games for how long?" Kenny asked, his previous mockery replaced by genuine curiosity. Maya found herself explaining her gaming background to an audience that actually seemed interested in her answers. She described the progression from casual interest to serious skill development, the hours of practice that had built her tactical awareness, and the online communities where her abilities were recognized and respected. For the first time in her high school career, she was discussing her genuine interests with classmates who were listening rather than judging. Marcus, the laser tag facility manager, joined the conversation with enthusiasm that confirmed Maya's performance had been genuinely exceptional. "I've been running tactical scenarios here for 3 years, and what Maya just did was honestly professional-level shooting. The precision and the tactical awareness she showed are the kind of skills we see from military personnel and serious competitive players." Maya felt a flush of pride at the professional validation, but she also noticed how the compliments seemed to change the way her classmates looked at her. Respect from an authority figure carried weight in the social ecosystem of high school, lending credibility to achievements that might otherwise be dismissed as luck or accident. Maya's mother approached through the crowd, her face showing a mixture of pride, amazement, and perhaps a little concern about how dramatically her daughter's social situation had changed in the span of a single afternoon. Linda had watched the entire challenge through the viewing windows, seeing not just Maya's tactical success, but also the crowd's growing excitement and the shift in how other students related to her quiet daughter. "I'm so proud of you," Linda said, giving Maya a hug that felt different from their usual interactions. There was recognition in her mother's embrace, acknowledgement that Maya had revealed aspects of herself that even Linda hadn't fully understood or appreciated. Maya felt tears threatening as she realized that her mother's pride wasn't just about the laser tag success, but about watching her daughter finally stand up for herself and demonstrate the strength that had been hidden beneath years of social anxiety and self-doubt. The drive home was filled with conversation that would have been impossible before the challenge. Maya found herself talking openly about her gaming experiences, her online friendships, and the confidence she felt in virtual environments that had never translated to her real-world social interactions. Linda listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she was beginning to understand the depth and sophistication of skills she had previously dismissed as mere hobby. "Why didn't you tell me you were this good at these games?" Linda asked as they sat in their apartment that evening, sharing a dinner that felt more relaxed and connected than their usual silent meals. "I didn't think you'd understand," Maya admitted. "And I didn't think it mattered because it was just online stuff. I never imagined it would translate to something real." Linda was quiet for a moment, clearly processing the implications of what had happened. "What do you think will change at school?" Maya had been wondering the same thing. The attention and respect she had received at the laser tag facility felt good, but she wasn't naive enough to believe that one successful afternoon would completely transform the social dynamics that had defined her high school experience. Some students might continue to see her differently, but others would likely dismiss the whole incident as a fluke or an irrelevant novelty. "I don't know," Maya said honestly. "I hope some things will be different, but I'm trying not to expect too much." Linda nodded approvingly. "That's wise. But I think you learned something important today about what you're capable of when you decide to stand up for yourself." Maya spent Sunday oscillating between excitement about returning to school and anxiety about whether the previous day's events would have any lasting impact on her social situation. She had received several text messages from classmates she had never communicated with before, mostly asking questions about gaming and expressing continued amazement about her laser tag performance. The attention felt good, but it also felt fragile and potentially temporary. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that made everything feel more significant and dramatic. Maya dressed more carefully than usual, not because she wanted to attract attention, but because she felt different about herself and wanted her appearance to reflect that internal change. She chose clothes that were still practical and understated but fit better and projected more confidence than her previous wardrobe choices. The hallways of Riverside High felt different as Maya walked to her first class. Students who had never made eye contact with her before offered smiles and greetings, some stopping to ask follow-up questions about her gaming background or to express continued amazement about her laser tag success. The attention was overwhelming, but mostly positive, a stark contrast to the years of being ignored or actively avoided. Maya's first class was American History with Mrs. Patterson, a teacher who had always appreciated Maya's academic diligence, but had never paid particular attention to her personal situation. As Maya took her usual seat in the second row, she noticed that several classmates turned to look at her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to genuine respect. "I heard about your laser tag victory," Mrs. Patterson said as class began. "Congratulations on what sounds like an impressive demonstration of skill and determination." Maya felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment at being singled out, but the teacher's comment was clearly meant as a compliment rather than mockery. Several classmates murmured agreement, and Maya realized that news of her success had spread far beyond the students who had actually witnessed it. Jake was in Maya's third-period chemistry class, and their interaction would be a crucial test of whether his apparent change of attitude would persist beyond the immediate aftermath of the challenge. Maya entered the classroom with some trepidation, unsure how Jake would behave when surrounded by his usual social group rather than the mixed crowd that had witnessed her laser tag success. "Hey, Maya," Jake said as she passed his table on the way to her usual seat in the back of the room. His greeting was casual, but clearly audible to surrounding students, marking a dramatic change from years of being ignored or subjected to subtle harassment. Maya nodded in response, still cautious about trusting the apparent shift in Jake's attitude. She took her seat and began preparing for class, trying to focus on chemistry rather than the social dynamics that suddenly seemed so much more complex and unpredictable. The lab assignment that day involved working in pairs, and Maya steeled herself for the usual awkward process of being assigned to work with someone who clearly didn't want her as a partner. Instead, she was surprised when Jake's friend Brad approached her table before Mrs. Chen had finished explaining the assignment. Want to be lab partners? Brad asked, his tone suggesting that this was a genuine invitation rather than a reluctant obligation. Maya agreed, curious about whether Brad's apparent change in attitude would translate to actual collaborative work or if this was just a temporary novelty that would fade as quickly as it had appeared. To her surprise, Brad proved to be an engaged and respectful lab partner, asking for her input on procedures and seeming genuinely interested in her analytical approach to the chemistry problems they were solving. Lunch presented the ultimate test of how much had actually changed in Maya's social situation. For 3 years, she had eaten alone at a corner table, sometimes reading while she ate to avoid the uncomfortable feeling of being surrounded by social groups that she wasn't part of. Today, she approached the cafeteria with uncertainty about whether she should maintain her usual isolation or risk trying to sit with other students. The decision was made for her when Sarah Martinez waved her over to a table that included several students Maya recognized, but had never spoken with extensively. The invitation felt genuinely welcoming rather than forced, and Maya found herself joining a lunch conversation for the first time in her high school career. "So what got you interested in tactical shooting games?" asked David Kim, a student from her AP English class who had always seemed nice but had never initiated conversations with her before. Maya explained her progression from computer programming to game design to actual gaming, finding that her story generated genuine interest rather than polite tolerance. The other students asked thoughtful questions and shared their own experiences with various games and hobbies, treating Maya as an equal participant in the conversation rather than an outsider being temporarily included. The most significant moment came when Jake approached the table with his usual group of friends, creating a situation that Maya would have found terrifying just days earlier. Instead of the confrontation or awkwardness she expected, Jake simply nodded in her direction and said, "Mind if we sit here?" Maya found herself part of a mixed group that included both her new acquaintances and the students who had tormented her for years. The dynamic felt surreal, but it also felt genuinely different from the power imbalance that had defined her previous interactions with Jake and his friends. They were treating her as someone whose presence was welcome rather than merely tolerated. "I've been thinking about what you said Saturday about strategy and patience," Jake said during a lull in the conversation. "I play basketball, and I think I focus too much on aggressive moves instead of reading what the defense is actually doing." Maya was surprised to find herself offering actual advice about tactical thinking and pattern recognition, concepts she had learned through gaming that applied to various competitive situations. Jake listened with apparent genuine interest, asking follow-up questions that suggested he was taking her insights seriously. As the week progressed, Maya began to settle into a new social reality that felt both exciting and uncertain. The dramatic transformation from outcast to respected classmate was gratifying, but it also raised questions about the superficiality of social hierarchies and the arbitrary nature of how people were valued and dismissed. Some changes felt authentic and lasting. Maya found herself included in study groups where her academic strengths were genuinely appreciated rather than resented. She was invited to social events that she would never have been considered for before, and several classmates actively sought her advice on gaming and strategic thinking topics. Other changes felt more superficial. Some students seemed interested in Maya only as a novelty, someone with an unusual skill set that made for interesting conversation, but not necessarily genuine friendship. Maya learned to distinguish between people who were interested in her as a person and those who were simply fascinated by her unexpected capabilities. The most important change was internal. Maya found herself approaching social interactions with confidence she had never possessed before. The knowledge that she was capable of succeeding under pressure, of demonstrating skills that impressed people who had previously dismissed her, created a foundation of self-assurance that influenced every aspect of her daily life. Maya still spent time gaming, but she no longer saw it as an escape from real life. Instead, it had become a bridge between her virtual capabilities and real-world confidence, proof that skills and intelligence could be developed and demonstrated regardless of social expectations or stereotypes. The relationship with her mother deepened as Linda began to understand aspects of Maya's personality and capabilities that had been hidden for years. They started having regular conversations about Maya's interests and goals, discussions that felt more like genuine communication between equals rather than the cautious exchanges that had characterized their previous interactions. Maya's academic performance improved as she became more willing to participate in class discussions and group projects. Teachers who had always appreciated her quiet diligence began to see her leadership potential and strategic thinking abilities. Her confidence in her own intellectual capabilities grew as she realized that her tactical gaming skills were actually sophisticated forms of problem-solving and analysis. Most importantly, Maya learned that respect had to be earned, but that earning it was possible even for someone who had spent years being overlooked and underestimated. The laser tag challenge had provided a dramatic demonstration of hidden capabilities, but the real transformation was in Maya's understanding of her own worth and potential. As autumn turned toward winter, Maya reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that November morning when she had finally decided to stand up for herself. The quiet girl who had been invisible for years had discovered that invisibility was a choice rather than an inevitable fate, and that choice could be changed by someone willing to take risks and demonstrate their true capabilities. The challenge had ended with 5 perfect headshots, but the real victory was in everything that followed. The recognition that she deserved respect, the relationships that grew from genuine mutual interest, and the confidence to continue standing up for herself in whatever challenges lay ahead. 6 months after the laser tag challenge that changed everything, Maya stood in front of the bathroom mirror, getting ready for her senior prom. A milestone she had never imagined she would experience as anything other than an outsider looking in. The girl staring back at her bore little resemblance to the invisible teenager who had eaten lunch alone for most of her high school career. The same intelligence and sensitivity remained, but they were now coupled with a confidence that transformed her entire presence. Maya had chosen a deep blue dress that complemented her dark hair, which she wore in an elegant updo that her mother had helped her create. The transformation wasn't just cosmetic. There was a light in her eyes that reflected genuine self-assurance rather than the careful guardedness that had protected her for so many years. She looked like someone who belonged wherever she chose to be. The changes in Maya's life had evolved gradually, but consistently since that pivotal Saturday afternoon. The initial wave of attention and respect had settled into something more sustainable, genuine friendships based on mutual interests and shared experiences rather than mere fascination with her unexpected capabilities. Maya had learned to navigate her new social reality with the same strategic thinking that had served her well in gaming, understanding when to engage and when to maintain boundaries. Her relationship with Jake had become one of the most surprising developments of her senior year. What had started as grudging respect on his part had evolved into genuine friendship built on mutual appreciation for each other's strengths. Jake had discovered that Maya's strategic thinking was invaluable for basketball strategy, while Maya had found that Jake's natural leadership skills helped her feel more comfortable in group situations. "You ready for this?" Jake asked as he arrived to pick up Maya and her date for prom. In an unexpected twist that would have seemed impossible a year earlier, Jake had ended up serving as Maya's transportation coordinator when her actual date's car had broken down at the last minute. Maya's date was David Kim, the thoughtful student from her AP English class who had been among the first to treat her differently after the laser tag challenge. Their relationship had developed slowly and naturally, built on shared intellectual interests and a mutual appreciation for quiet observation and careful analysis. David understood Maya's introverted nature while encouraging her to continue pushing beyond her comfort zone. "I think so," Maya replied, checking her appearance one final time. "It's strange to think that a year ago, I couldn't imagine anyone asking me to prom." Jake's expression grew serious for a moment. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. How many other people are we overlooking because they don't fit our stupid assumptions about what matters?" Maya was struck by the genuine thoughtfulness of the comment. Jake had become surprisingly introspective about the dynamics of high school social hierarchies, often expressing regret about his previous behavior and curiosity about how to create more inclusive environments. Their friendship had taught both of them lessons that extended far beyond their individual relationship. The prom itself was everything Maya had imagined but never expected to experience. She danced with David, laughed with friends who had become genuine sources of support and joy, and felt completely comfortable being herself in a social setting that would have terrified her just months earlier. The evening felt like a celebration not just of the end of high school, but of her transformation from observer to participant in her own life. "Having fun?" David asked as they took a break from dancing to get some punch. More than I thought possible, Maya replied honestly. A year ago, I would have watched prom from outside, probably through social media posts, and convinced myself that I didn't want to be here anyway. David smiled. And now? Now I realize that a lot of the barriers I thought were permanent were actually just in my head. People can change how they see you, but first you have to change how you see yourself. Maya's academic achievements had also reached new levels during her senior year. Her increased confidence had translated into more active participation in class discussions, leadership roles in group projects, and a willingness to pursue challenging opportunities she had previously avoided. Her teachers had begun to see her as a student with significant leadership potential, leading to recommendations for competitive colleges that had seemed impossible to reach just a year earlier. The college application process had become an exercise in articulating the transformation she had undergone and the lessons she had learned about resilience, strategic thinking, and the importance of standing up for oneself. Maya's essay about the laser tag challenge and its aftermath had captured the attention of admissions officers who were impressed not just by her unusual story, but by her thoughtful analysis of what the experience had taught her about courage and self-advocacy. Maya had been accepted to several excellent universities, including a prestigious engineering program that specialized in game design and virtual reality development. The acceptance felt like validation that her gaming interests and tactical thinking skills were valuable assets rather than mere hobbies, opening doors to career possibilities she had never dared to consider. Her relationship with her mother had continued to deepen as Linda began to see Maya not just as her daughter, but as an emerging adult with genuine expertise and wisdom. They had started having regular conversations about Maya's future plans, her relationship insights, and even Linda's own goals and dreams that had been shelved during years of single parenthood and financial struggle. "I'm proud of the person you've become," Linda said as she helped Maya with her prom preparations. "But I'm even more proud that you found the courage to become who you always were underneath." The comment captured something essential about Maya's transformation. She hadn't become a different person. She had simply learned to express and develop aspects of herself that had always existed but had been suppressed by fear and social conditioning. The tactical intelligence, the capacity for leadership, the ability to perform under pressure, all of these qualities have been present but dormant until circumstances forced her to discover and develop them. Maya's gaming had evolved as well, from a solitary escape to a social activity that connected her with both online communities and local friends who shared her interests. She had started a gaming club at school that attracted students from across the social spectrum, creating a space where strategic thinking and collaborative problem-solving were valued over traditional markers of popularity or social status. The club had become surprisingly popular, with members ranging from traditional gamers to athletes who were interested in applying tactical concepts to sports strategy. Maya found herself in the unusual position of being recognized as an expert whose insights were sought by classmates who had once ignored or dismissed her. "You've created something really special here," Marcus from the laser tag facility had told Maya when he visited the school to speak to the gaming club. "You're not just playing games, you're teaching people how to think strategically and work together effectively." Maya had also begun tutoring other students in tactical thinking and strategic analysis, skills that proved valuable across multiple academic subjects and extracurricular activities. Her reputation for helping struggling students develop better problem-solving approaches had made her one of the most sought-after tutors at Riverside High. The most profound change, however, was in how Maya approached challenges and setbacks. Instead of automatically assuming she would fail or be rejected, she now analyzed situations strategically and looked for opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities. The laser tag challenge had taught her that preconceptions about her limitations were often more powerful barriers than actual limitations themselves. Maya had faced several tests of her newfound confidence throughout the year. When she was initially overlooked for a leadership position in the school's academic team, she had requested a meeting with the faculty advisor and presented a detailed analysis of her qualifications and strategic vision. Her thoughtful approach had not only earned her the position, but had impressed the faculty member enough to recommend her for additional leadership opportunities. When a group project in her AP Physics class had threatened to exclude her from meaningful participation, Maya had taken the initiative to reorganize the group's approach and delegate responsibilities based on each member's strengths rather than their social status. The project had become one of the most successful in the class, earning recognition from the teacher and respect from her group members. Maya's transformation had also influenced other students who had been struggling with their own social challenges. Several classmates had approached her for advice about standing up for themselves or developing confidence in their abilities. Maya had discovered that helping others find their own strength was deeply satisfying and had reinforced her own growth. "I wish I could have done what you did," a sophomore girl named Emma had told Maya after asking for advice about dealing with bullying. "You made it look so easy." "It wasn't easy," Maya had replied, "but it was necessary. And once you prove to yourself that you can do something that scares you, everything else becomes a little less frightening." Maya had begun to understand that her story was part of a larger pattern of young people learning to advocate for themselves and challenge assumptions about their capabilities. She had started writing about her experiences, initially for the school newspaper, but eventually for online platforms where her insights about gaming, strategic thinking, and personal transformation reached broader audiences. Her writing had attracted attention from organizations focused on youth empowerment and anti-bullying initiatives. Maya had been invited to speak at several events, sharing her story and the lessons she had learned about the importance of recognizing hidden talents and challenging social hierarchies that dismiss people based on superficial characteristics. "The most important thing I learned," Maya had told an audience of middle school students, "is that other people's opinions about what you can accomplish are often based on incomplete information. They don't know what you've been practicing in private or what you're capable of when you decide to try." Maya's college plans included not just studying game design and virtual reality, but also exploring how gaming concept could be applied to education and social development. She had become fascinated by the potential for virtual environments to help people develop confidence and strategic thinking skills that would translate to real-world situations. Her relationship with David had grown stronger throughout their senior year, built on shared intellectual curiosity and mutual support for each other's goals and dreams. They had been accepted to universities in the same city, making it possible to continue their relationship while pursuing their individual academic interests. "What do you think you'll miss most about high school?" David had asked as they walked through the halls of Riverside High one final time before graduation. Maya considered the question carefully. "I think I'll miss the feeling of discovering what I was capable of. Everything felt so significant because I was learning things about myself that I had never known before." "And what are you most excited about for college?" "The chance to start fresh with people who will know me as the person I am now rather than who I used to be. But also the opportunity to help other people discover their own hidden strengths." Maya's graduation speech, delivered as the valedictorian she had never imagined she could become, focused on the theme of hidden potential and the importance of creating environments where everyone's capabilities could be recognized and developed. "We all have skills and talents that we haven't discovered yet," Maya told her assembled classmates and their families. "Sometimes it takes a challenge that scares us to reveal what we're truly capable of. But more often, it takes communities that look beyond surface impressions and give people opportunities to surprise themselves." Maya's mother watched from the audience with tears of pride, seeing not just her daughter's academic achievement, but the confident young woman who had learned to stand up for herself and advocate for others. Linda had also been transformed by Maya's journey, rediscovering her own confidence and pursuing educational opportunities she had postponed for years. As Maya accepted her diploma and looked out at the crowd, she spotted faces that represented the entire arc of her transformation. Jake was there, applauding enthusiastically for someone he now considered a genuine friend. Her gaming club members were cheering in a section together, representing the community she had built around shared interests and mutual support. Marcus from the laser tag facility was also in attendance, having become something of a mentor as Maya developed her interests in tactical thinking and strategic analysis. His presence reminded Maya that the challenge that had changed everything had really been just the beginning of her journey towards self-discovery. Maya's future stretched ahead with possibilities she had never allowed herself to imagine during her years of invisibility. She would study game design and virtual reality at a prestigious university, but she would also continue writing about personal transformation and developing programs to help other young people discover their hidden capabilities. The shy girl who had once eaten lunch alone and feared drawing any attention to herself had become someone who understood that visibility was a choice and that the greatest tragedy wasn't being seen for who you were, but never discovering who you could become. Maya's story had become part of Riverside High's culture, referenced by teachers and counselors when working with students who seemed to be struggling with confidence or social challenges. The laser tag challenge had entered school legend, but the real legacy was in the understanding that everyone possessed capabilities that might not be immediately apparent. As Maya prepared to leave for college, she reflected on the moment that had changed everything. The decision to shake Jake's hand and accept a challenge that had seemed impossible. The 5 headshots had taken less than 20 minutes to achieve, but the transformation they had triggered was still continuing, still revealing new aspects of what she could accomplish when she decided to try. Maya understood now that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite fear when something important was at stake. Standing up for herself had been important enough to risk humiliation, and the risk had led to discoveries about her own strength and potential that continued to influence every aspect of her life. The quiet girl who had spent years being invisible had learned to be seen, not by changing who she was, but by revealing who she had always been beneath the protective armor of self-doubt and social anxiety. Maya's story was proof that transformation was possible at any moment, for anyone willing to accept a challenge that would test everything they thought they knew about themselves.